Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Governor and Doctor, for being here today, and thank you so much for leading the National Research Council report. We, on the committee, I know, really appreciate it. And you're right, Governor, that we've had a lot of discussions about space flight that have united this committee, and they also have the potential to unite the country. And we let our imaginations really be ignited by the incredible work done by NASA. We've had a lot of discussions in this committee and in the Space Subcommittee about the leadership and the long-term thinking that's involved in looking at space flight. We've had some interesting discussions here about the strategic direction, and that's why we especially appreciate your report. You know, what are the benefits of going back to the moon, or do we focus on Mars? Do we have the asteroid retrieval mission? So we're really glad that we have your background and your expertise. And I want to follow up on the previous conversation about international collaboration. We've talked about that a lot in this committee, and I noticed that one of the things in the report that you mentioned is that it's evident that U.S. near-term goals for human exploration are not aligned with those of our traditional international partners. While most spacefaring nations and agencies are looking toward the moon, specifically the lunar surface, U.S. plans are focused on redirection of an asteroid into retrograde lunar orbit, et cetera. So can you talk a little bit about whether we should stop discussing going back to the moon and really focus on Mars, or do we need to continue to have those conversations about returning to the moon as part of international collaboration if, in fact, those goals are different?
Well, thank you. It's an excellent question. Of course, it was an observation, and we had personal testimony and chance to question leaders of every international space program. And I think it's an accurate reflection of what we heard from them to say that they lack enthusiasm, at least at this point, for the ARM idea. They have been more interested, and told us so, in the lunar surface. And my friend Jonathan talked in answer to a previous question about the reasons our committee saw some advantages to that. If you're going to the Martian surface, it might be extraordinarily helpful to have been on some surface first, as opposed to leaping there without benefit of that direct experience. I think that's part of the thinking of our international partners or potential partners as we heard it. But again, it wasn't in our charge, and it's not part of our report to make any specific recommendation, only to say that at some stage, and we hope it's before long, the nation needs to pick such a route and stick to it.
Thank you. And I want to try to get another question in. You, Dr. Lunine, you talked about the myths, and it was interesting to hear you say that if we relied on public opinion polling, things might be very, very different. I've talked a lot in this committee, and we've had a lot of discussions about part of the role of NASA is to inspire students to go into science fields. I also serve on the Education Committee. We have a lot of discussions about that. Can you talk about whether NASA is doing enough to really share its successes, its potential with the public? Because I tell you, when we're talking with our constituents, they don't understand all the benefits of space exploration, both in the short term and the long term, and historically. So are they doing enough? Is there more that can be done either through NASA or in other ways so that we can help to shift the public opinion and see the benefits?
Thank you, Congresswoman, for that question. The myth I was referring to in particular with respect to public opinion is that during the development of Apollo there was large-scale public support for that program. And in fact, what our public and stakeholders outreach panel found is that that really was not the case. But in retrospect, the public supported that program, looking back on it, and the same seems to be true now for the shuttle. With respect to your second question, we did not look in detail at NASA's Education and Public Outreach program as a committee, so I can't speak to that in the context of the report. My personal experience with NASA is that it does an excellent job of providing materials through the web and other means for the public to be engaged in space exploration of all types. And I've been a part of that to some extent, and I think that certainly a large part of what we do in space now is immediately accessible to the public through the web.
That's great.
May I add just a quick word? I think
If the chair will allow.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
I do think it's an important, really important question, and I would only add that I believe if there were a secret sauce that NASA could have applied that would ignite a different level of public excitement, it would have happened a long time ago. When we talk about realism about public opinion, we're just trying to look in a clear-eyed fashion at the data Jonathan just talked about, and really what it says is that this will require national leadership. Many things do. Many things are not many of the great achievements of this nation and this government have not been directly responsive to a previous public outcry. And so what we do find in the data is that where leadership occurs and then progress occurs, the public is proud and the public then responds very strongly.
Thank you very much, and my time has expired. I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chair.